Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Hope you're all doing well. We have a very special event today. It is Marketplace Startups Masterclass with FJ Labs' Fabrice Grinda. So our agenda for today, we will be going over the vision and values of Founders Network. We'll go over some of the updates and then go straight into the presentation and discussion. So here at Founders Network, we believe in lifelong success through peer mentorship, meaning we are going to be here for you through this startup, your next startup, and anything that comes after. We are a vision and values-based organization, and our four main tenets are authenticity, reciprocity, humility, and inclusivity. So the authenticity, the more open you are, the more we can help. Meaning you let it all out. That's the only way we'll be able to kind of pinpoint what your pain points are. Reciprocity, helping first and paying it forward, really sharing your experiences and connections with each other. Everybody's here for the right reasons. And so we always encourage you to ask for help. Recognize that you are a sample size of one. So we have many founders here who have been in your shoes, gone through the same things, and have gotten through them. So please do not hesitate to ask for help. Also, trust in our approval process. Again, like I said, everybody is here for the right reasons. And so that way we can kind of build on this. We can build the diversity, the greater breadth of data leads to better perspectives, better decision-making, and better outcomes. With that being said, we do have several D&I initiatives happening at Founders Network. We have our Black Founders Initiative, as well as our Women's Leadership Initiative. Both of these were launched in 2020 to inspire, engage, and support our founders, also to amplify their voices. If you have any questions about either of these initiatives or any suggestions for more, we're always well open to that. So just let me know. This kind of goes through our firmographic stats. As you can see, we have an average of 4.6 startups per member. So we know that once you get that founder bug, you're really stuck with it. So we also have over $12 billion in exit value and a nice mix of sectors, chapters, companies, and different people at different stages of the founder life cycle. So these are some of our lifetime members. If you see any of them, make sure you connect and see what made them decide to be a lifetime member. It is really for us the pinnacle of membership here at Founders Network. If you have any questions about it, you can let me know, or anyone with this green background can answer any questions you have. Definitely want to say thank you to our partners. Without our global, national, regional, and community partners, we would not be able to provide as many resources as we do. So absolutely want to shout out all of our partners. Now, these are just some of the new and featured deals that we have. And if you have any questions about these, you can contact us, or you can go directly into the deal tab in the platform. Okay. Our peer mentor of the week is Chris Bobo. Chris is co-founder at Plume Social. He actively participates in both our forum as well as in our events. So if anybody was at Summit, you would have met Chris. So if you see him, congratulate him on being the peer mentor of the week. And we'd love to see your faces up here as well. These are some of our upcoming functions. We do have several coming up. We do have our peer-to-peer pitch review as well as our meditation. You know you have to take care of yourself as well as your business. If you're interested in RSVPing for any of these events, please do not hesitate to let us know and we can help you get registered. We do have another event coming up in just 2 days, so make sure you RSVP to that one as well. So for all of our future members, we want to welcome you. Take advantage of this opportunity and really participate. Engage with some of the members, ask questions. We would really love to hear from you. Make sure you do participate in the Q&A, and you can always put stuff in the chat that we can get to. So we have taken the 1% pledge, and we invite you to do so as well. Pledging 1% means you're pledging 1% of your products, time, services, or revenue and profit. So we have pre-funded a $10 donation for each of you. We have partnered with Fin to do so, who is a very loved member of Founders Network. If you can, scan that QR code and choose the charity that will receive your donation. Now, the reason we are all here, Marketplace Startups Masterclass with Fabrice Grinda. So Fabrice is among the world's leading internet entrepreneurs and investors. He has over 300 exits on 1,000 angel investments, and he served as CEO on 3 multinational companies and has an impressive track record as an early investor: Alibaba, Coupang, Airbnb, Instacart, Flexport, Delivery Hero, and many more. Now, you will hear the rest of Fabrice's bio throughout his presentation. So if you have any questions, though, please don't hesitate to put them in that chat. We will be going over 3 different things today. Not to say these are not mutually exclusive. So we are going to be going over how investors evaluate marketplace founders, how to build marketplaces, and the latest marketplace trends. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the baton over to Fabrice. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I'll start with giving you a little bit of background and explain why I've been building marketplaces for so long. Basically, I'm French originally. I'm from Nice in the southeastern part of France, and I got my first PC in 1984 at the tender age of 10, and it was love at first click. From that point on, I knew we were meant to be together forever. And as I kept progressing, realized that in order to express my entrepreneurial ambition, I had to come to the US, came to the US for college, went to Princeton, top of my class. And I graduated in 21 and 96. And it was already obvious to most there was a bubble going on, but I'm like, I'm 21, I'm shy, don't really know how to build a business. If I join one, I'm not gonna be taken seriously. If I build one, I'm probably gonna fail. Why don't I go to the equivalent of business school, except they can't pay you, and I went to McKinsey. I thought I would miss the bubble doing that, but lo and behold, I didn't. And so all of a sudden, we're in 1998. I've learned what I need to learn. I'm 23. I decided to go and build a startup. The issue is the constraints at the time were pretty profoundly different from what they are today, right? Things like no code, low code, open source, AWS did not exist. You needed millions of dollars in order to turn the lights on. And many of the ideas were really out of reach for a 23-year-old. If you want to build an Amazon type company, you need billions and dollars of inventory. You need supply chain management skills. If you want to build an e-trade, you need like banking licenses. It just so happened that I'd studied market design and in general in college. It was one of the things I'd studied and thought was particularly exciting and interesting. And then when I fell on the eBay website, it was another time of these love at first discovery. And I'm like, maybe it's not super creative, but I'm going to take this to the rest of the world. And so I ended up building Auckland, which is a eBay type site for Europe. And look, marketplaces have this chicken and egg problem, or the difficulty, but in their own ways, something I was particularly well suited to do. I understood how to analyze, elasticity of demand and supply, how to figure out what the effective take rate should be, how to build liquidity, how to match liquidity, and I will talk about a little bit of this later. Obviously made a few mistakes along the way, most importantly, chose the wrong investor, and sadly grabbed defeat from the jaws of victory when I couldn't convince my investors to let me sell my company to eBay for $300 million in cash, and at 40% of it, I was 25. Instead, we sold for $1 billion, but to a publicly traded company whose stock promptly fell 99.98% during my lockup period. So went from their market cap went from 10 billion to 30 million, to give you a sense of scale. So I went from zero to hero, back to zero again. But I didn't do this to make money. I built this because I like building something out of nothing. And so I went on create my next company. Now, I wanted to be a founder because I would like the 0 to 1. It's just that in 2001, post bubble bursting, there was no capital available. And so the constraint was not build something you want to build. It's like, what can I build with no capital? And I'd seen another idea of ringtones and mobile content being successful in Europe and Asia. And I figured I could bring into the US. It was extraordinarily hard, like 2 years of basically living in New York and $2 a day. And I really mean $2 a day. I slept on the couch of the office. I could even afford coffee. I could only afford ramen noodle. I had 4 ramen noodle cups for a day. Invested every last penny I had in the company, missed payroll 27 times, but ultimately did the opposite, grab victory from the jaws of defeat as we became profitable on August 15, 2003. And once you're profitable, you're master of your own destiny. And the company grew from 1 million in revenues in 02 to 5 in 03 to 50 in 04 to 200 in 05. And this time I sold it for cash to a publicly traded competitor, having learned the lesson in the past, to go on to build what I really meant to build and wanted to build, which is going back to my first love of marketplaces. I tried to convince Craig to sell me Craigslist back in 2005, and he said no. I tried to convince him to let me run it because I felt he was doing even though he was providing an amazing service to humanity by not monetizing properly, there was a disservice in the sense there was too much spam, scam, prostitution, or horrible UX UI, not navigating the mobile transition. I couldn't convince him to either sell or let me run it. And I offered to run it for free, by the way. I said, "Hey, let me run it for free for a year, see how it goes, and then we can revisit." And so I ended up building a company called OLX, which today is the largest classified site in the world. It's 11,000 employees in 30 countries. We're part of the fabric of society, especially in emerging markets where there's no payment system, no trust, and no shipping services. And we are the leading classified site in Brazil and all of Latin America, and India, Pakistan, Indonesia, Philippines, all of Southeast Asia, the UAE, and the entire Middle East, Poland, Romania, Ukraine, and until recently, until Putin decided to steal it, Russia as well. Company is ginormous, over 300 million uniques. I sold that in 2013 to Naspers Process, publicly traded media company, and just because it was, we'd won the war, it became very large. We're part of a publicly traded company. It wasn't fun anymore. I wanted to do the 0 to 1. Now, at that point, I'd already invested in 173 companies. I'd had dozens of exits, and I realized I like building companies. I like investing in companies. Now, what's interesting is I'm an accidental VC. Never set out to be VC. Just so happens that when you're a very visible consumer-facing intranet CEO, a lot of other founders start approaching you and asking for money and advice. And I thought long and hard back in '98. I'm CEO. It's a full-time job. Should I be investing on parallel, especially with little bit of capital? But I'm like, if I can articulate lessons learned to others, it makes me a better founder. So it's okay. And I'm running a multi-category horizontal site. Meeting vertical founders is something that is meaningful. Keeping my fingers on the pulse of the market. So it's okay. So started investing. Took on a life of its own, did very well. In 2013, built FJ Labs, which at that time was really a family office. It was an private personal investment vehicle to invest in startups and marketplace startups, um, and to build companies. And other people started asking me to invest in my fund or wanted to exposure what I did. And so it became a fund with my partner. So we did a fund 1 in 2016 of 50 million. We did a fund 2 of 175 million in 2018, and we just closed fund 3 of 290 million. And we've got $1 billion AUM. Now, to date, we've invested in over 1,000 companies, roughly over 1,100 right now, over 300 exits. We've been returning at a 39% realized IRR for 25 years. So it's going very, very well. Now, I'm getting the meat of the topic today on how we evaluate startups and marketplace startups, understanding that because I was busy being a CEO, I decided I needed to create a mechanism by which I could decide very quickly if I would invest or not. And so I created a strategy by which I evaluated startups in a 1-hour time period. And in that 1-hour time period, I evaluated 4 things. Now, today we have a fund. We have 35 people. We get 300 inbound deals a week. So we're mostly, drinking at the fire hose of deals. We're not hunting for deals. They come to us. We've created a brand in marketplaces. The reason I only did marketplaces, by the way, is I had pattern recognition. It's something I understood innately. I didn't have time to do actual research. What we do today, frankly, is angel investing at venture scale. We write 300K checks very quickly after 2 1-hour calls over the course of 1 week. So you'll take a first call with the team members. We value the companies in 4 things. So the 4 criteria, and I'm going to talk about what also are the trends right now in terms of valuation, et cetera. The 4 criteria is as follows. Do we like the team? Now, every VC in the world will tell you, I only invest in extraordinary talent and extraordinary people. Now, what we define as a good team is one where the founder is both an extremely eloquent, visionary salesperson, because if you're amazingly well-spoken, you're going to attract better people, you're going to do better BD deals, you're going to raise more capital at better terms, and you're going to get more PR. But that's a necessary but insufficient condition. We also want people that know how to execute. But if you only know how to execute, maybe you're not going to be raise enough capital to build a very big company. Now, the way on a 1-hour call we evaluate whether or not you know how to execute is the way we do number 2. Number 2 is, do we like the business? We care deeply both about TAM, maybe current one or future one, but also unit economics. We've always been unit economic driven, even in 2021 when everyone else was ignoring it. And the unit economics we look for is we want you to be able to recoup your fully loaded customer acquisition costs on a net contribution margin basis, on a CM2 basis, in 6 months. And we want you to, and it doesn't matter where your CAC comes from. It doesn't matter to me if it's sales driven from a sales team in person, if it's direct mail, if it's Google, if it's TikTok, if it's Facebook, it doesn't matter. And we want you to 3x your CAC on an 18-month period. Now, many of the companies we invest in are seed. We're stage agnostic, geography agnostic, but mostly we're seed and A. Many of them have not been live for 18 months. But based on the early data, we need to believe that you're going to get there. And if you're not there, we need to believe that with scale, without every star in the multiverse aligning, you're going to get there as well. Now, we don't do much pre-launch, but we do some. And so for pre-seed, we expect you to have done density of keyword analysis in Google and Facebook, landing page analysis where you estimate your CPA and your CAC. And based on that, you better know what the AOV of the industry is, what your margin structure looks like, and what your expected unit economics will look like. If you can't articulate that, it probably means you're not going to be able to execute very well. Number 3, deal terms. Nothing's cheap in tech, but we want something that's fair. Fair in light of traction, team, category, and opportunity. And it is the thing that has kept, and that discipline, and I will share what the current metrics are, is what has kept us doing well in even in times of like 2021, where many things got overvalued and we did not go crazy. In fact, we were sellers in 2021 in secondaries as we read the macro correctly. Right now, we are back from pre-seed to B to the median valuations that we saw in the 2016-2019 period. I'm going to share a link in the chat after I'm done with this presentation where I'm going to talk about what are the current valuations and trends that we're seeing. I wrote this blog post in early 2021, but it was using 2016 and 2019 data, so it is applicable. Currently, the median, again, the mean is higher than the median because the exceptional second-time founders or things like AI are distorting it, but the median pre-seed raise is $1 million at 5 pre. The median seed raise is 3 at 10 pre. Now, could be 10, 11, 12, but that's the range. But in marketplaces, these have already traction. So it depends on, I'll talk both GMV and net revenue. On average, a marketplace with a 15% take rate is raising the seed with $150K a month in GMV at 15% take rate. So obviously like 25K net revenue per month. If you're a B2B marketplace with like 3-4% take rate, obviously it's more like 500K a month in GMV. And we're talking again, 25-30K a month in net revenues. Or if you're a SaaS business, it's 30K a month in net revenue. So look at the net revenues probably as a better comp across different categories, but that's the median seed today. The median A today is a company doing $750K a month in GMV with a 15% take rate. So again, you're $150K a month in net revenues, and you're raising 7 at 23 pre, 30 post. Again, median raise. Some people and I speak very fast, Farhad. I apologize for that. Fortunately, this is recorded, so you'll be able to listen to the to the playback. The median Series B today is a company doing 2.5 million plus in GMV, but 500K net revenues, and we'll raise 15 at 50 pre, 65 posts. As I said, I will share these metrics. This year, we've invested in over 200 companies already, so these are statistically significant based on where we are. And number 4 criteria for how we evaluate marketplace for how when you're fundraising is thesis, or you solving one of the world's problems that we care about, and we are trying to solve inequality of opportunity, climate change, and the mental and physical well-being crisis. And we have clear thesis on the future of work, the future of food, the future of real estate, the future of automotive. Are you in line with our thesis of where the world is heading? So for us to invest, you need these 4 criteria need to be true simultaneously. We need to like the team, we need to like the business, meaning the unit economics and the TAM, we need to like the deal terms, and we need to like the thesis. If all 4 are true, we will invest. Now, lessons learned on how you build marketplaces. A few things. I will share 2 links in the chat as well on A, how do you come up with ideas? B, how do you evaluate ideas? But lessons learned. Here's why startups fail, and then I'll double click on here why marketplaces fail. Obviously, the first main reason why startups fail is you don't find product market fit. You don't find product market fit typically because you can't get the unit economics to work. And as I said, you need to find scalable acquisition channels, which is why pre-launch you're always doing landing page analysis and testing the density of the channels. So you're testing how many words you have, how many keywords are people searching for in Google, and how many ads impressions you can buy on Facebook. Because obviously sometimes your CAC works at 100K a month in spending, but it doesn't work at 1 million or 10 million, which means that there's a capped outcome on your business. Second main reason people fail is you have a fighting with a co-founder, but not specific here. And third one is actually counterintuitive. You've raised too much money at too high a price. Now, first-time founders often fall prey to that. Imagine you're raising your Series C or B, and you have an opportunity to raise 50 at 200 posts. 25% dilution, you're raising 50. Founders will always see that as a better option than raising 25 at 75 per 100 posts. Same dilution, but in one case, but double the valuation. Now, if you are worth 150 million for reals and you don't need to grow in the valuation, that's totally fine. The problem is if you're not worth that and you don't grow into the valuation for whatever reason, then it's problematic. And what we're seeing right now in 2023 is a fundamental repricing, or not, and kind of like death toll of the companies that raised too much money at too high a price in 2021 that did not grow into the valuation. And the issue is, if you do a down round, because there are anti-dilution provisions in your prior rounds, it'll reprice the prior rounds. And in so doing, you completely wipe out the founders, as equity holders. And so it is the most common mistake probably in general, and then I'll go to the marketplace founder mistakes, to raise too much money at too high a price. And when it is available. Less of an issue in 2023, but definitely an issue in 21. And right now we're seeing a lot of companies raising flat to the last round to avoid the anti-dilution, but they put in 3x liquidation preference, 4x liquidation preference, and it's going to kill basically the early shareholders, and including the founders, who are going to get wiped out at exit, where the preference stack is going to eat the entire outcome. Now, the most common mistake marketplace founders make when they build a marketplace is actually having way too much supply. Most marketplaces are demand constrained, not supply constrained. Sellers on a marketplace are financially motivated to be in the marketplace. If you go to a seller of anything and you tell them, hey, I have a marketplace, we don't have much traffic right now, but you might get buyers and we take 10, 15%, but it's free to be there. Most people will sign up for that. And that's true to almost every category. B2B, B2C, C2C, doesn't matter. The sellers are financially motivated to be there. And so 99% of marketplaces, you will start by getting the supply. The issue is you need to be very, very thoughtful on how you get the supply. And that mistake applies both to product marketplaces and, to Devin's question, to service marketplaces. Imagine, I'm going to give a service marketplace example. I wanted to build a locksmith marketplace in New York. I can actually, I don't know how many locksmiths there are in New York. I'm going to make numbers up. 3,000 of them. Could I call literally every single one of them in a month? Probably. A month or two, you're going to call all of them. Many of them are going to go on the marketplace, and all of a sudden, you're going to have 2, 3, 400 of them on the market on the site, but you have no demands, and so they're not going to be engaged. They're not going to provide quality service. They're going to churn. And so the way you should scale a marketplace is you get the very best curated supply. You find the seller is the most interested about what you're doing, who's going to be motivated, and you bring them demand to the point that you represent. So it depends on the category, but let's say it's a C2C marketplace for used goods. Liquidity is when you're at 20 to 25% probability of the item selling. In a service marketplace, you want to represent about 20% of the revenues of the supply. Obviously, ultimately, you want to represent 100%, like Uber or whatever, but you want to represent at least 20%. Once you have that, you can scale supply again, bring in demand, and keep matching them. It typically means that, it depends on the nature of the marketplace, but it pays to be hyper local and then expand zip code by zip code. Obviously, some categories are national, in which case, fine, go national. In fact, it's way cheaper to go national because advertising is cheaper national than local. But literally, the single biggest mistake I've seen is people have too much supply that is then not getting revenues, that is not engaged, that is not providing quality experience to the demand side, regardless of the training that you offer, et cetera. So I would so highly curate my supply to make sure that they're happy and excited that they're going to deliver a great experience, and then you bring demand, and then you keep scaling them little by little in parallel, and not flood your marketplace with supply. So that would be the core recommendation. Before I turn to Q&A, which we'll do shortly, let me talk about the current thesis, right? Like, many people come to me and they're like, first of all, how are you seeing 300 deals a week now? Many of them are out of scope, but we're seeing at least 50 marketplaces a week. They're like, hasn't everything been done already? And the reality is no. Yes, on the consumer side, you have these extraordinary experiences. You have Amazon, you can get everything delivered in a day or two. You have DoorDash and Uber Eats, you have Airbnb, you have Uber, you have Booking.com. But actually, in the business side, very, very, very little has been done. Digitization of B2B supply chains is often sub 1%. It's definitely sub 5% in basically every category, but it's definitely sub 1% in most. Let me give you an example. Imagine you wanted to buy petrochemicals today. There is no catalog. Ignore online ordering, pricing, et cetera. Just catalog. What is available? There's no online catalog. Then there's no pricing. Then there's no connectivity to the factory to understand manufacturing capacity and delays. Then there's no online payment and ordering. Well, no online ordering, no online payment, no tracking of your order, no insurance, and no financing. And all these could be different companies. And I just gave it an example, petrochemicals, which is a $1.2 trillion category. But that's true of steel. That's true of cement. That's true of gravel. We're in a gravel marketplace called Shootflix in Germany. That's true of inputs, etc. So in general, B2B marketplaces, so input category or marketplaces are at the very beginning of their digitization process, and we're big investors in that. That's one core thesis. There are 5 theses we're investing in B2B marketplaces, so that's one of them. Second big thesis in B2B marketplaces for us is SMB enablement and helping SMBs compete with the large chains. Imagine you started a restaurant, or imagine you started a pizzeria. You're Luigi. Why did you start your restaurant? Well, you like cooking. You like talking to customers. Why did you not start the restaurant? Well, building a website, answering comments in Google and Yelp, negotiating with Uber and DoorDash, doing your inventory management, getting supplies, doing your accounting, getting a POS, all those things that are admin overhead that you end up doing 90% of your time on, or not the things you'd like doing. And so we're investing in companies that do that for the SMB owners. It also kind of falls in the future of work. Future of work, you will do the job you like doing. You will, and the company and the startups will do the things you don't like doing. So, for instance, we're investors in Slice. Slice helps over 15,000 pizzeria owners doing managing, picking up the phone, creating the website, getting the orders, answering the comments in Google, Yelp, and digitizing their entire businesses. And they're doing like over $1 billion in sales. We're investors in Odeco, doing hundreds of millions in sales, selling coffee beans to coffee shop. And the NPS is super high because they have the keys to the store. They go in at night, replenish the inventory without bothering the barista or the store owner during the day while he's serving clients. We do the same for bodegas, helping them buy better with a company called Cheaper. I mean, basically we do it in every major vertical that you can imagine. We're investors in Fresha, which is a barbershop marketplace, helping barbershops manage their businesses. They manage the seats, they manage the reservations, they manage the employees that are using the seats, because most of the hairdressers are contractors on the seats. Now, the business models for these all vary dramatically based on the business. In some categories, you take 2-3%. Some categories, you take 15%. Some categories, you take 0%, and you monetize differently. Fresha, for instance, is the provider of the POS, and they monetize by taking a margin on the POS. They have 70,000 barbershops on the platform. They're doing like 6 billion in GMV. And so even though they're taking 60 bips in margin on the POS, on a big enough volume, it's a very attractive business. Some provide a SaaS tool. So they're marketplaces, but you're not always monetizing through take rate. Okay, so first big category, digitizing inputs, steel, metal, lithium, whatever, finished goods. Number 2, SMB enablement. Number 3, friendshoring. And friendshoring means moving supply chains out of China into friendly countries. Could be the US, but actually could be other countries. And the main one we've been investing in recently is India. India is the only one that has the manufacturing capacity, the number of factories, and the talent and the depth of talent to actually move a proper supply chain. Most of the factories in India are owned by mom and pops, so they kind of fall in the SMB enablement category. What is the mom and pop owner of one factory in India want to do? He wants to manufacture. What does he not want to do? He doesn't want to be answering RFQs. He doesn't want to be doing prototyping, dealing with shipping, customs, invoicing, getting paid from these larger companies. And so we are investors in marketplaces that are helping these mom and pop SMB owners of factories in India export to the West. So we're investors in Ziad, which is an apparel marketplace, in Dukan, which is a linen and a rug marketplace, and Shimcard, which is a ceramics marketplace. I mean, and you imagine the vertical of good that needs to be moved out of China, especially in India, and we're basically investing in it. So it kind of it answers the question of fraud. We do invest in non-US deals. We're 55% US and Canada. We're 25% Western Europe. We're 10% Brazil, India, and we're 10% Western world. We are big investors in Eastern Europe in places like Poland. We're in Dock Planner. We're in Vinted in Lithuania, and many other places, but we're really investors everywhere. We're investors in Africa, in Nigeria, in Namibia. We're investors in the Philippines. We're investors in Vietnam, etc. Beauty of being that prolific. Number 3rd core thesis is actually the talent marketplaces that go to support these. So we mostly do staffing because you get a recurring revenue stream where we get a percentage of the revenues of the salary of the employee for a long time in categories where the economics may work. Now, the issue with job sites is many of them are not real marketplaces. They're really outsourced marketing products. They're an arbitrage between Google and imagine you're a small restaurant, you want to recruit someone. You're not an expert at buying ads on Google. So instead, you go to ZipRecruiter and you pay ZipRecruiter, and then ZipRecruiter buys ads at Google or on Recruiter, whatever, in order to get leads. And that's an arbitrage business model. The reason that's not a real marketplace is it doesn't have network effects. As you scale, your CACs don't get lower. LinkedIn is a real marketplace and network effect business, because the more people they have, the more other people they have, and their cost of acquiring the marginal both employer and the marginal employee is declining over time. So we are focusing on these staffing businesses or talent marketplaces that have these dynamics. So for instance, we're investors in WorkRise, which used to be called RigUp, for oil services workers, and I think they're at over $1 billion in GMV. We're investors in Trusted Health, which is a nurses marketplace doing hundreds of millions of staffing. We're investors in a trucker marketplace for truckers. We're investors in a blue collar marketplace in Europe called Job and Talent to staff warehouses for Amazon or drivers for Uber. I mean, and the list goes on. It's less of a thesis because many of these things are not staffing, they're full-time jobs, and they're less marketplaces and more, as I said, these arbitrage businesses, which I think are less compelling. And last but not least, number 5, big vertical and marketplaces that we're interested in is the infrastructure layer to support our thesis. So we're investors in Flexport, which is a digital freight forwarder, which is helping companies ship globally. We're investors in ShipBob, which is a last mile picking, packing marketplace that helps retailers online and offline and compete with Amazon by doing picking, packing, shipping, and last mile logistics. And so a lot of these, or we're investors in payment companies like Stripe, or many of the Rapid, which is a marketplace payment company, to be the infrastructure layer for marketplaces writ large. I'll pause here. I've spoken very quickly of a lot of things, both our thesis, how we evaluate companies, lessons learned. I'll answer a few of the questions in the chat, and then you can add a few more. So, would the best approach to use a no-code marketplace platform to build an early MVP instead of finishing, designing, and implementing it? The answer is often yes. Many of our marketplaces, for instance, on the demand side, for the consumer side, they use Shopify. Even though Shopify is not a marketplace product, it gives you the full-blown consumer-facing demand side, and then you build in the supply side on your end. But yes, there are a number of tools you can use out there, depending on what you're doing, that are easier. But these days, honestly, even if you're building it yourself, building an MVP is very cheap. My first startup, I had to build data centers and buy Oracle licenses for databases. These days, with no code, low code, and open source, I could probably build any marketplace for sub 50K, and I definitely would for your launch. Now, when I do the landing page analysis, etc., pre-MVP, I do that on landing pages. It's not a functional product. Then once I've tested my theoretical unit economics work, then I do the MVP, and I do it cheap. As I said, sub 50K, usually sub 25K, using programmers on Upwork and elsewhere, and/or tools that are available. Would we invest in B2B travel marketplaces? We would consider it. We looked at For Travel. We looked at a few. Travel, though, and that's answering Siavash, the current margins are reasonably low. And if you look at what valuations the comps are trading, like Expedia, Booking, et cetera, and it's like 0.1x GMV, I mean, and the CACs have been high historically. So the threshold for us to get excited would be pretty high. And we probably would wait until seed or A to see real traction, real product market fit, real unit economics. What advice would I give someone building supply for a talent marketplace? Yeah, get the very best supply possible. Not too much of it, and then just delight them. Like bring them enough demand that you start representing 20+% of the revenues of them, and then they'll be excited, and you can scale with them. And we've seen this scale that way for and provide value, right? Like, do they want to work part-time? In which case, do that. We're investors in Squad. I mean, so talent marketplaces are doing well. TopTal has done extraordinarily well in high-end developers. A-Team for teams is doing well. We're building one right now called Squad for Web3 talent. I would go vertical, by the way. So find a vertical where there's a problem you can be valuable. But for the talent, figure out what their pain point is and try to solve that. Okay, let me keep going. Questions. We are building a food B2B MVP. Do we need to care about the architecture scalability now? No, not at all. Make sure find product market fit. You could always you could always fix make the platform more scalable later, but make sure it is a tech product, right? Like what you don't want to be is a service company. And so you need to prove that you're not doing all these things manually, and or at least there are things to automate that you're going to have a margin that's in line with what I would expect the marketplace to be at. So you don't. The last thing you want to be is a services company, which is why like commercial movers, there were a few of these. In fact, I think we invested in a commercial moving marketplace, and it did okay, but or it is doing okay, but not very well. I think it's called Move. Maybe it's called Shift or Shift Move. I don't know. The I don't remember exactly what the issues were. If it was density of supply, if it was creating the right routes, or just getting a high enough NPS, or if it's just getting the unit economics to work. But it is possible. But look, you need to look at market size, unit economics, etc. What are your thoughts on the best revenue models for P2P services? Especially where there isn't necessarily much cash transactions. P2P services, yeah. I mean, rental marketplaces of products haven't worked. The AOV has been too low. People have been willing to pay. Barter doesn't work particularly well. Subscription may work. It really depends on the category. So I mean, the problem is the answer that the devil, as always, is in the details, and so the answer is always it depends. Are people willing to pay $5-10 a month for a number of things, especially when these things are free and they find enough value? Yes, you just need to make sure that your bundle has enough value, right? Like people are willing to pay that for meditation apps. And these are doing very well, right? Calm and Headspace. I mean, they're not marketplaces. Oh, Marketplace E. Would they do it for getting access to people providing services? Maybe. For that one, I need more detail. Wouldn't Uber fall under the services definition? Uber for sure is a marketplace. It's a marketplace. It's an intermediary. So in the Uber driver's side, between the drivers and the passengers, it is doing some level of curation of the supply side and actually of the demand side, and it is providing things like payments and 1099s and making sure that they are licensed, etc. So it actually is a managed marketplace, but it is. Is it a service company? Yeah, it's a service company. They're providing a service. And the good news is, for the most part, they represent, of the ones that are full-time drivers, like 100% of their income. So the issue Uber doesn't have the best economics is the network effects in Uber are logarithmic. They're not exponential or even linear, meaning the value add of the marginal driver when you go in the beginning is very high. If you go from 10-minute wait time to 5 minutes is very high, and it's pretty high from 5 to 3. But going from 3 to 1, or once you're at 3-minute wait time, the marginal driver on the road doesn't actually increase the quality of the network for the demand side significantly, and actually decreases the quality for the drivers. And so there is which is why it's also cheaper in a way to have it's easier to have it's not winner takes all. You can have a lift in the category, as opposed to other marketplaces, which are really winner takes most, and with increasing and improving network effects. Would I consider investing in a car rental marketplace? Probably not, partly because I'm an investor in Kite. Kite is a car rental marketplace already, so I don't invest in competitors. I will invest in similar companies across different geographies, but I will not invest in direct competitors. So if Kite is not going global, I'll do the same. I'll do Kite for Europe or India or whatever, but I will not do a direct competitor in the same company. Pre-revenue, I probably would. Again, my standard for pre-revenue is very high. You would have to be a second-time founder, because I don't invest in competitors. It means I need to be very careful, because I invest in you, and there's 5 others, and someone else breaks that, I locked myself out of the category. So I'm very, very careful and thoughtful pre-launch or pre-seed, which is why seed is more my bread and butter. In the context of a food B2B company, the difference between, didn't mean be a service. In your case, I'm not too worried about being a service company, as long as you're not the one providing the inventory, as long as you have other suppliers and you're an intermediary between the buyer and the seller. There are a lot of people that have done food B2B for what it's worth. We are investors, not in the US. We never ended up invested, but in Europe, there's Choco, there's Reki. They've scaled, but I don't think they've monetized particularly well. They've raised a lot of money. I don't think they were able to take a take rate. There's 2 Choco Reki equivalent in the US that raise money. I think Maple is one of them. I can't remember the other one. They've done. I don't think they got a take rate either. We were able to make it work in Australia and also in specialty food. We were investors in a Spanish one that also wasn't able to monetize. So I'd be thoughtful in the bodega space, though. B2B supplying to bodegas, there's a bunch of them that have worked. There's also a bunch of them that haven't worked, and you need to be careful about what you do. Are you doing delivery or not? Or are you picking the supply for them, or are you using their existing supplier relationships? I mean, it really depends on the vertical. You're British company, build a B2C news tech marketplace, connect smartphone directly to publications, can sell everyday pics, videos. Skeptical. Will supply of content of users first or register for applications first. You typically start with a little bit of supply and then you get demand. I think the demand side is going to be hard here, but I guess I don't like media as in general, because these guys have no money. So I have a priori ex ante negative perspective on this, also because I feel that there's so much infinite content that people are willing to sell for free, and also AI is possibly an existential threat here, where it can generate content of almost anything pretty effectively. So I'm skeptical about the average order value. I'm skeptical about getting the demand side. I'm skeptical about creating something big out of here. Question, would you consider investing in a software company whose product is used to run marketplaces? Yes, we do. It's not our bread and butter, but we will do it. Oh, that was a direct message, but yes. Disagree that Uber is a marketplace. Broken network. It is intermediary between drivers, and our definition of marketplace is pretty broad. It's intermediaries between buyers of something and sellers of something. Here is drivers selling their time and passengers wanting to be driven somewhere. And in fact, if you go to Uber Eats or DoorDash, it's a 3-sided marketplace between the restaurants, the delivery people, and the people ordering the food. Is there a correlation between rate of change between your investments over time? The thesis, or we've always been doing network effect businesses and network and marketplaces, but what we invest in changes because over time it changes, right? In the early days, we were just doing the core food delivery like Delivery Hero or Rappi, and we're doing core marketplaces like Alibaba that have everything. Then we started going vertical by vertical, the StubHubs of the world, and we were investors in TCG Player, which is a marketplace to do Pokemon and Magic the Gathering cards. So very verticalized, and that grew to hundreds of millions in sales, and was sold to eBay. We're investors in Reverb, which is a music instrument marketplace. So we verticalized. Then a lot of things became managed marketplaces, where the marketplace is doing more like not just managing the payments, but curating one side or the other. And these days, it's mostly B2B marketplaces. And so it's evolved in terms of where penetration is, what's been done, and what is the job that remains to be done. But when I think of B2B marketplaces, massive, massive, massive job remains to be done. We're at like sub 1% penetration. If you look at it, e-commerce writ large is like 20% penetration. So yes, it's good at 3x from there. But when I think of B2B, it's good at 100x. what are your thoughts on splitting the 15% service fee for two-sided marketplaces? So who you charge actually depends on the elasticity of supply and demand, and you want to charge the more inelastic part. So the person that in a way cares less. And the answer varies dramatically by market. And so the other way I think of this is it's good to charge the person getting the value. So for instance, with Vinted is a fashion marketplace. It's kind of Poshmark done right. It's a much larger, better economic version of Poshmark. Now, Poshmark, I think, takes 10-15% from the seller. And it turns out that if you go free, you have infinite supply. And then if you charge the buyer for shipping and escrow, where this way they can return it, they don't like it, they're the ones getting the value. And if you charge the seller for at-home pickup because they're getting the value, it works best. So Vinted, by flipping the model on its head, charging the buyer because they were the ones getting the value, and not charging anything to the seller, increased supply dramatically. And it ultimately created a much, much more compelling business that is a effective take rate that is still 8-9%, but is way more profitable.
Hi, Fabrice. This is Steven. That was my question. So we're looking to do a medical device innovation platform. And the questions that we're having while we're trying to scale the supply side is how do we find some growth hacking opportunities with referral programs, essentially, and saying you get discounted rates for X time if you refer.
Yep.
That's why we're trying to figure out how to build some referral program and also still get, finding something to help us in that aspect and not, freaking out, putting the 50% directly on the supply or on the demand side.
Yep. Look, these are the things you test. What is the sensitivity to pricing, and some B2B marketplaces or people care very much so, right? Like, so when you're ordering $5 million of petrochemicals, often the correct take rate is 0. And in fact, you're going to make money by selling insurance, by doing financing and doing factoring. Factoring is a very effective business model in many cases because there's a big delay between when the buyer is paying and when the person is receiving it. So if it's like 90 days and the provider is like desperate for cash, you can easily take 5-10% on and to me, factoring is a marketplace, by the way, because it's an intermediary between the provider capital, usually a bank line of credit, and the requirer of capital. So again, I use a broad definition of of marketplaces. Would you consider investing in a software company whose product is used by marketplace? Yeah, yes, I said I would. I would. In fact, we're investors in like payment companies, etc. Devils in the details, need to make sure that is, I'd have to understand what the value prop is, what they're competing with, who the customers are, et cetera. The issue is if the clients are the concern I have with selling software to do something is sometimes people do it until a certain scale, and then when they get big, they remove it. And that's not true of payment platforms, right? It might be true of selling a marketplace platform, and then that creates a capped TAM, and so TBD. Any suggestion in delivering demand outside of typical marketing efforts? If you're targeting Gen Z, millennials, TikTok has been shockingly effective. We're seeing CACs that are very low, and I think it's still a underutilized acquisition channel. Then it depends, right? Like everything, we've tried everything. It basically, you need to throw spaghetti on the wall. Inside sales, outbound sales, in person, telesales, LinkedIn in-mails, Google, Facebook, retargeting of existing audiences. You test it all. Many of these things end up being Excel games. It's CAC to LTV. Can you make the CAC to LTV work? Understanding that Facebook and Google have gotten worse because of Apple, and Apple's removing the tracking has increased CACs across the board. But TikTok has remained shockingly effective. And things like referrals, et cetera, can work, especially in B2B environments. Now, in B2B, it's often sales driven. The founder profile is pretty different, probably worth mentioning. The people running the petrochemical company, he like worked for a petrochemical company for 20 years. He has credibility in the industry to change behavior, because that's what you need to change. What you're replacing is pen and paper. And so or people doing it in Excel. And so you need to have their trust. As your company invests in the gaming market, we have invested in gaming because I'm a gamer. We've done very well there. We actually looked at we were investors in FanDuel. We're actually currently looking at a bunch of P2P marketplaces where people are betting against each other in games and stuff like that, with auto preventing cheating systems. We haven't done any of these, but we have looked at this. So we are open. We're definitely open to it. I mean, taking a step back, we invest in every category, in every industry, in every geography, at every stage. So there's nothing we won't look at, but we want marketplaces and network effect businesses, not just because I think they're a better way to solve the world's problems, right? Like, they're capital efficient, they're asset light, they're winner takes most. So I'm not beholden to marketplaces. I don't think they're the end all be all. But if you want to build a value tech company, it takes so much money and time before you see real revenues. If you want to build a hardware or deep tech company, same thing. We are doing a few of these for fun, but they're far and few between, because it's 10 years to market and seeing revenues, and it takes hundreds of millions to get there. So as a allocator of capital, and frankly as a founder, when I build companies, I want to build something that I'm not going to get diluted to zero on the way up. And because the VC cycles are very clear, right? It's your 1 million pre-seed, 3 million seed, 7 million A, 15 million B, 35 million C, and you need to fall in these cycles. Otherwise, you're going to face infinite dilution. And you want to end up with owning 20, 30% of the company, not 1%. And as a VC, I want to end up owning, I write small checks, so a couple percentage points, but if you're a normal VC, you want to end up owning 10, 15%, not 1%. So we'll look at everything. We're going to build a transportation marketplace. It'll make everyone mobility more sustainable, equitable, and affordable. Great. We're investors in 2 mobility marketplaces. We're investors actually in Lime, and actually in the European version one that is doing very well with good economics. Both are profitable right now, doing very well. What is your opinion on educational marketplaces? Again, it depends. We're investors in some that are doing very well, some that are not doing very well. So devil is in the details, but not against it. Look, parents want their kids to do well. So if you can find the right product at the right price, you're going to do well. Selling to schools, extraordinarily hard. They have no money. Do you think marketplace software products can be winner-take-all businesses? Can be. Software in general is a tendency not to be, so less likely to be. But maybe the reason the answer is maybe is the more users you have on your platform, the more data you get, the smarter the platform gets, and maybe you get this flywheel where you are so much better at predicting pricing, providing tools, et cetera, that you are the no-brainer solution. Let me give you an example of what we're seeing of crazy use of platform that is really impressive. We're investors in a handbag marketplace called Rebag. Because they have all the data on what are the prices of handbags, they've created an AI called Claire AI, where if you take a photo of a handbag, it'll tell you the condition, if it's real or not, the model, the make, it'll come up with a title, the description, the price, and your handbag is sold in 10 minutes. Compare that with eBay. Try to go sell on eBay. And you have to take 20 photos, come up with a category, come up with a price, describe the title, write the title, write the description. It's going to take 2 weeks to sell. Imagine your platform has so much data that you can actually be I take one photo and I'm done. It is so much better, but obviously you need to have enough data. So maybe it's possible. Have you seen clever ways to keep marketplace users from circumventing the marketplace to transact directly or off platform? Yes. Again, the devil's in the details, but if you don't take too much, meaning if you take 10, 15% and not 50%, and you provide real value, insurance, safety, etc., like Airbnb, for instance, you're going to be, people are not going to want to circumvent you because they're going to want the value of the insurance, of the payment solution, of the ease, etc. Or in case of Uber, right? Like in Uber, it's a non-monogamous relationship. It's not a driver and you, it's infinite drivers and you, because you'd want to go to different places at different points in time. So if you have fragmented supply, non-monogamous relationships, you're way more likely to avoid people transacting off platform, which is why in many of the B2B marketplaces, you cannot necessarily take a take rate because the check sizes are too big. And so maybe you're monetized differently. But again, it really varies platform by platform. Just provide enough value that they value the 10-50% you pay, they charge, and they don't want to disrupt you. Have you seen clever ways to keep, is the mental wellness crisis area promising? So that one, well, yes. Think of BetterHelp or Talkspace, right? They're marketplaces for finding psychiatrists that are doing very well. They're not Calm or Headspace fall in that category. We're also investors, and these are not marketplaces, so they're more out of personal interest. We're also marketplace investors in psychedelic therapy assisted companies, but here we're less into the people like creating spaces for them, but more the developing the compound. So we were early investors in Atai and Compass. So this is more like the fun stuff we do outside of it. Yeah, I think. Yes.
We just hit time, and I do want to be respectful of your time. Thank you so much for answering any questions. If you'd like to just give a final thought, and what we can do is kind of compile some of the questions and get some of the answers.
Yeah. So let me do a few things. Let me share a link with well, you can check my blog in general, but I'll share a few specific links. This is the valuation metrics I was referring to. So even if I spoke slower, you wouldn't have been able to necessarily get all the valuation traction, et cetera, of what I think, what is fair. So I'll put it in the chat. Obviously, maybe you guys could share it by email afterwards, because
I'll copy them.
It will disappear, obviously, once this ends. This is the way we evaluate startups. And I described my thesis in the last year. I'm going to write a blog post on my current thesis on B2B. I haven't written it yet. It will be in Q1 2024. So in the meantime, if you want to listen to my latest keynote, I actually, in the last part of it, I talk about our current B2B thesis. If you can reach out to me at Fabrice@fjlabs.com. I'll put it in the chat as well for fundraising purposes. In the email, include a blurb about what you do, the traction you have, and include the deck. Make it easy for me to decide based on the email to take a call. Never like, hey, I'm building a blah marketplace. Can we take a call? I won't reply to that. Give me enough information that I'll tell you if I'm interested or not and what I want to see. I prefer seed round than pre-seed, so more and onwards, seed onwards, where you have some traction and some unit economics. You can send me pre-seed, but 90% probability you're going to get a reply that we've seen too many of these. We want to wait until traction, but feel free to send it anyway. And that's, basically it.
Well, we appreciate this presentation so much. So much insightful information. Thank you for being here today. And anytime you'd like to come back, we are sitting here waiting. So
when my thesis changes, if I think there's something fundamental that's changed that is worth coming about, I will come about, or even just to do another one of these and maybe just do a Q&A, because I see a lot of questions here.
Absolutely. Appreciate you. Thank you, Fabrice. And everyone else that's here, thank you so much for being here today. If you have any questions, please let us know. And that is all for today. Hope to see you at our next event on Thursday. So let me know if you would like to RSVP or need some help registering. But thank you so much for sticking with us a few minutes past the time. And we hope to see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Dina. Thank you.
Thank you.